MiniWarGaming's The World Engine.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and it's time for another story time for the World Engine 40K narrative campaign. If you haven't already watched missions 3A and 3B, make sure you go back and watch those now because this will have spoilers from those missions. And so go ahead and do that now. Close the video, go do it. Anyways, I will now continue. Recapping what happened in missions 3A and 3B, well, we have Davicus, who was trying to take down the Catan power source, at least the one that he was able to find. And he was successful, kind of. Well, he was successful in planting the Delta bombs that were able to go off and take down that power node, but he lost most of his forces in the fight. Overlord Sobek, who was struck down from fire, got right back up as he reanimated and kept fighting. The Catan came out and started and killed a bunch of Terminators and got Captain Antaro onto the ground before he moved off. Captain Antaro did survive, thankfully, as did Davicus, and just a handful of their troops, but that was really it. And so they had to escape there as they took down that power node. But thankfully, they did get the power node down, which was enough to disable the overall power grid and destabilize the null field matrix altogether. So then Chief Librarian Matthias led a large strike force onto the Tomb World, hoping to just go quickly and get in there, smash and grab, and go and get the null field generator. And was incredibly unsuccessful. In fact, the Necrons just overwhelmed the Space Marine forces. And even though they knew they were outnumbered, they thought that their speed and the smash and grab kind of feel to it would be enough to just get through, get it, and get out before the majority of the Necron forces could mobilize. But there was just too much, and their forces were overwhelmed completely. And Khrushchev was even cut down, but just his iron resolve, he just stood back up and refused to go down. Matthias was destroyed, but survived it, of course, but he was majorly wounded. And Chief Librarian Matthias survived as well, and as all his forces were falling around him, he realized as more and more Necrons were marching onto the scene that he had to surrender. Not quite sure knowing what that would happen by doing so, but it was either that or just be completely overwhelmed and destroyed. And the Necrons actually accepted their surrender and didn't just destroy them. He was unaware of Knum's appetite for anything living, but thought at least this might buy him some time. So they were captured, while Davicus and Antaro were able to continue to escape within the Tomb World, but it was only a matter of time. In fact, it was only a matter of time before they were finally overwhelmed and captured as well. So all of these characters, Matthias, Davicus, Antaro, Khrushchev, Matthias, did I forget anybody? They were all captured in this Tomb World by Overlord Knum, who was ready to make a banquet of them all. But then a better offer was made to him. All of a sudden he receives communications from an orbiting Necron ship, and someone who refers to himself as Trazine the Infinite asked to negotiate for those characters. Somehow in his spy network he heard about this fight that was going on and was very interested to add these Space Marines and these characters to his collection. If you know anything about Trazine the Infinite, he is a Necron overlord who is a historian. So he's a self-proclaimed historian. He loves collecting things, and he's been doing it for millions of years, or at least he did it back when the Necrons were in power, and then has continued to do that after his Tomb World reanimated and came back alive. A very powerful overlord who's rumored to have all sorts of stuff, maybe even a Primarch hidden away in his vaults. And he just loves to collect. And so he's kind of had his eyes on, his mechanical eyes, on the Space Marine chapter, because they keep kind of appearing and disappearing. So they're this rarity, they're this thing he has to collect because nobody else has it, and he's just obsessed with it. And so he comes to Knum, knowing Knum is just kind of interested in quantity, not necessarily quality, and offers him lots of other Space Marines that he has captured, and even a regiment of Catachans in exchange for just these paltry few Space Marine characters and other Space Marines from this chapter to be added to his collection. And so this provided an interesting distraction, and while in stasis, or while captured, while imprisoned, Chief Librarian Matthias they're kind of all together, and talking with Davicus realizes the extent to the threat that this tomb world does possess, because Davicus was able to find out that this tomb world is actually a world engine, which is, as explained before, is basically a Death Star of sorts, where the whole world can actually move once it's totally reactivated and repaired. And it's under repair, and they've been having problems, but eventually Knum is going to succeed in activating this thing, in which case he will become an incredibly powerful Necron overlord in this sector. He'll be able to just go and quash entire fleets and destroy planets, and who knows what else that he wants to do in his crazed mind. Of course, he does want to go and destroy the Hive Fleet as well, but there's so much more damage that he would do. And Matthias, realizing that they just were unable to secure their objective, decided that as a secondary objective, they would try to stop this world engine. But how could they do that? Their forces had been crippled. They have the rest of their forces back on their planet, but like we said before, they can't just keep bringing more and more and more, because then that abandons their planet, and the few who survive and get pulled back into the warp into their planet will be left undefended and will be destroyed by demons, or worse, twisted by chaos and tormented for all eternity. Who knows? But he realizes that they must make some sacrifices in order for this world engine to go down. And so he telepathically sends up an order to the men on the ship that they came on, that were just in the warp, just outside of the null field. And now there's no null field there anymore, but there's still, the Necrons themselves generate enough that they can still pass into it. It's just that it's not creating the same null field that was in existence before. And he orders a suicide run from their cruiser to overload their warp drive, so that they would crash into it and it would explode, and he hopes that that'll do enough damage to permanently disable, if not destroy, this tomb world. It's tough, because the tomb world is the size of a small moon, and this is just one ship, but just seeing the instability of the whole thing and how much repair it actually needs, he's hoping that this will be enough. And unbeknownst to him, he doesn't realize that Trazine at that moment is bartering to actually take them away from there. Not that it would have changed what they would have decided to do, but he just didn't realize this was all happening. So the Space Marines aboard the cruiser receive this communication, and they obey it, and they realize they have to make the sacrifice in order to protect humanity in this sector, because they still want to protect humanity. They're not following the chaos. They're still loyal to the Emperor, even if they're not recognized right now as a Space Marine chapter. They'll still do their part in protecting the Imperium of Man. So they set their course for the moon, and they start to go there. However, Knum sees this coming, because it's not like they just all of a sudden appear on the planet, and wants to stop it. No surprise. And so he is going to lead a strike force onto the cruiser and try to disable it before it can actually get to the planet. And meanwhile, Trazine has succeeded in his bartering for the lives of these characters, and is making off with them as this cruiser is coming in. And so those characters are all being whisked away, and we'll see what happens. So the next two missions are going to be all played on Zone Mortalis, and they're going to be to determine whether this cruiser makes it to the planet. If it makes it to the planet and explodes, the world engine will be disabled enough that it won't be a threat for ever, or at least for a very long time. But if Knum is successful in disabling the cruiser before it can get to the planet, then then the world engine will succeed eventually in being restarted. Either way, we are finishing the campaign with this one. I realize it's not as long as the other ones, it's just the way the story went. So this is the season finale. So go ahead and watch the missions below. 2 links, 4A and 4B. Of course, 4A is for free, and 4B is available to Vault members only. If you're not a Vault member, you can still click it and get a 7-day free trial. We ask you to try it out because I think you're going to love it. The majority of people who try the trial remain Vault members, because they realize that there's so much stuff in there, and it helps to support us and make more of these videos. And you can get it for as low as $2.99 a month if you buy the yearly bronze membership. So it's very inexpensive, and it really helps us to support our employees and make more of these videos. Thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.